Who's the most interesting celeb you've interviewed? Oh, the list is so long. And as you can see, I have flirted with all of them. Do you know the person that really took me by surprise was Colin Farrell. You know Colin Farrell, who played Penguin. In the Batman.
What a bloody show.
Not only obviously is he strikingly handsome, but I was just really surprised about how deep he was. Really thoughtful, very, very nice and approachable, and really the whole package. So, you know,
and he engaged as well. There
and
was
he
like
engaged.
a proper engagement.
Yeah. Hello, I'm Claire Bueno, and I'd like to take you on a journey of getting to know me through some of the friends I've made. Hi Claire, pleased to meet you. Not bad, how are you holding up? It's a long day for you. My aim is to ask stimulating questions that engage both the talent and the audience.
Interest in that reflected in you as a judge with the performances that you were judging today?
Well, that's an amazing question.
He is so unforgiving, really.
Very, you're smart. No, this is the first great question.
So what was it like for you directing a more contemporary piece?
Well, it was nicer, easier.
Channeling your Bette Davis.
You're absolutely right, well spotted.
So learnt how to sail.
Yeah, I know, that was ace.
When I saw the film, it really felt like it's a film that awakens the senses.
Absolutely, yeah.
You have a difference in respect for directors now, having been one yourself.
Yes, I think what I didn't realize over the years is how much acting a director does when you come to work, because they've had such bad news in the last 24 hours that you never hear about. It's constant every single day.
And finally, thank goodness, I decided to be a presenter. Thank you very much. Well, thank you very much. Yes, and I'm Claire Bueno.
And I'm Anthony,
and,
the brother.
The brother and sister team, and I work in front of camera and do the journalistic side of what we do. So I do the interviews. Anthony works
behind the camera. I'm comfortable with that. That's why we get on quite so well. We don't our skills don't conflict. So I was very much focused when I originally went to go and do filmmaking, was like directing, and that really kind of stemmed into doing camera editing. And then have done directing sort of like since in various kind of capacities. But, you know, but Claire wanted to be a journalist, and that's the way it all unfolded.
And we both grew up in Devon. What we found that we had to do was move to London to facilitate and help our careers forward. And we were there for 20 years before lockdown, actually. And here we are back in Devon. Always from the beginning of everything that we do is about being prepared. So knowing what your questions are, researching the person that you're going to be interviewing perhaps, being well prepared, well researched, really helps make your job easier when you're in the moment. And I'm going to show you my show reel in a minute. We'll probably talk about our specialism, which is interviewing, as opposed to other types of journalism. So to be on the red carpet, you have to go through what we call an accreditation process. So we will get a media alert from a PR company that's in charge of media management on the day, and then you apply to be there. So what happens is we put in an accreditation request. The PR firm will look at us, look at our reputation. So if it's somebody like Tom Cruise, it will then go to his personal publicist. And so any requests for interviews, and when you start to, even if you're doing sports journalism and you want to interview a footballer or whatever, they will have a talent management team, if they're famous, that you will go to, and they will look into the background, what your reputation is. It's their responsibility to make sure that the person who's going to be interviewing them, i.e. you, is responsible enough to be respectful to that person, to the talent. So somebody like Tom Cruise, for instance, and all the major stars, all of those people up there will have personal publicists that will give you permission. So then you get permission and you get onto the red carpet, and it's not always a given. It's very competitive. Well, you also, by the way, have to be very prepared to wait for a long time. Get there early, be ready, and then we all have a position where we stand. So there'll be a barrier and a laminate where we're all stood. So broadcast journalism, your BBCs, your ITVs are always going to be guaranteed, that are going out to millions of people, going to be guaranteed to have the top spots. And then they intersperse the print journalists with an online journalist, and we were online. We were video online, weren't we?
Most of the time. We had broadcast for a short amount of time. About 6 months we was able to do broadcast. I don't know if you've ever heard of Pearl and Dean, like a cinema advertiser, rags. But that's a different story. But we worked for them for 6 to 8 months. Mm-hmm. So that put us into a broadcast bracket. So that put us further up the carpet. And you would think it gets you a better position, but it doesn't, because it's really, it's kind of organised chaos, a red carpet. Mm. The PR companies try and organise everything so it's going to run like clockwork. But that's not taking into account the personal publicists and everything, because like the stars don't turn up like when they're supposed to. They turn up like 15 minutes before. Bruce Willis will turn up like 15 minutes before the film starts. It's like, thanks, Bruce. So it's a bit haphazard, but you think if you're further up it's okay, and they'll do the press and then they'll take them over to the other side of the carpet where all the fans are wanting to get autographs and stuff, and then they bring them back, and then you hope they're going to bring them back to the same spot, but they don't always. So it's really, there's no real winning situation unless you are BBC, ITV, and you are doing it for the big wigs. Yeah,
and most of the time on a red carpet, as opposed to if you were sat in a coffee shop doing a long form interview for a feature piece in a magazine or a newspaper or one of the supplements, where you have a good half an hour, 45 minutes sat with the talent over a cup of coffee. The red carpet is completely, it's bonkers. It's a lot of waiting around until the talent, as we call them, turn up. And then as soon as their cars turn up and they are bringing, they have a talent handler that will, or their personal publicist that will bring them down to each individual journalist, so you can have that one-to-one time. That one-to-one time is probably 3 questions if you're lucky. So you as a journalist have to think, right, I don't have a lot of time. My question has to get straight to the point, because I'm not going to have a lot of time. And depending on the talent, depends how long. Sometimes if they're not that versed with answering questions to journalists, they can talk and talk and talk and talk. And if you've got 3 questions, then you're not, and you've and a tiny amount of time, because they've got to keep moving that person on. You've really got to kind of think on your feet. And the bigger the star is, doesn't guarantee that you're going to have that time with the 3 questions that you would love with. In the time for the big journalists, for the big, famous movie stars, they'll group you all. And you'll be literally in a circle, won't they? And Anthony, you're the cameraman. You may want to talk in a minute about the position of the camera and what you needed to do. But it's like, okay, we're all huddled together. So what am I going to do to get that person's attention? Because everybody, the 3 or 4 of you that are all circled up, are going to be, I need this question, I want this question, and I want to get my question in, because you may only have one chance. And once they've asked that one question, they take, actually, in fairness, Tom Cruise is amazing. He will speak to absolutely everybody. He gets that, the importance of the press and the media, because we are all part of this media circus. If they're not doing publicity and you're not printing the stories, who's going to know about their film? Who's going to know what's going on or what book they're releasing? Your job is to get in there as fast as you can. So know your question. Again, going back to what I've said about knowing that, doing your research, being prepared, have that question in your head. And it's really simple. Just say their name. If you go George is going to look at you, because everybody answers to their name. So it's something really simple, but it's really powerful, because they'll just look at you and it's like, bang, you're mine for this minute, and I'm going to ask the question. And that's how I was able to secure a lot of the interviews with those big stars, like I did. And so for you, if I can hand over to you as a cameraman and how we would need to work together.
Yeah, because it was quite interesting. Because the first time I started to do it, it was like, I was always very, like, you want it shot as best as you can. And it's not like this where you've got a studio set and you can control the lighting and things like that. And you get a tripod, it's all locked off and it's looking lovely. It all got, because even your allocated spot, you still have to kind of fight for, because you're working with a pack of animals.
Yeah.
They're animals. And most of them, some of them are very respectful, some of them do not care. So I mean, one time it was Clash of the Titans. No, I remember Clash of the Titans.
Clash of the Titans, yeah.
And they wanted to, somebody was having to ask Liam Neeson about his wife who had just died.
Yeah.
And it's like, what on earth are you asking him? She's like, no, you've got to, and I've got to ask him, I'm going to ask him. It's like, I wouldn't, because, and I have seen it happen as well. Somebody will ask a real shitty question to someone and they'll just shake their head and they'll walk off.
Yeah.
And they just ruin it for everyone.
Yeah.
So it's you constantly have to be aware of everyone around you because you think they're going to be professional and they're not really. They just kind of, they've got their own kind of agenda that they have to meet. So that's kind of tricky. So I learned kind of quickly that having a tripod's not a great idea for a start because it locks you off. It's great if you're BBC, it's fine because you'll have a mark there and everything's fine. This is, you'll be shoved around, you get people trying to get in front of you, and especially in that huddle situation. So you get a monopod because even handhelds just, I used to have a friend who was a bodybuilder and he used to come and help us out sometime, and he was just like, after 5 minutes, he's like, oh, me arm. It's like, what? That was a right waste of time. That, 3 hours down the gym, Mike. Anyway, I'm not going to get onto that. But basically, it's kind of making things easier for yourself, flexible, and having somewhere to rest the camera, because it can be, even the lightest cameras can get really heavy after standing there for 3 hours. So it was good. Most of it was really good fun and a good laugh. There were times when it was just like, I've had enough of this, mainly when it was freezing. But it's incredible what you can get. But those situations where you huddle, it is just trying to get that best shot. And one time I had a tripod and went flying.
Have we got any questions about this particular area in terms of journeys about red carpet? Are there any questions here? Go for it.
I'd say it's like, how do you engage them with a good conversation, and how do you make it personal and engaging for your audience and the person you're interviewing?
Yeah, so absolutely brilliant question. And for me, it was because I cared. Again, we're talking about the preparation. I would go watch a film and write my questions and do my research about that film, and I would form a personal attachment to the questions that I've asked. And remember, in this instance, I'm interviewing actors, so they are studying the human condition, they study body language. So they already can read whether you know or care about what you're doing. Now, what was very important to me, because I cared about the craft of filmmaking, and that's where, again, when you're doing in your course at the moment, where you're talking about who are the audience that you are broadcasting to. We were broadcasting to an audience that care about film and the craft of filmmaking. We weren't about salacious gossip and asking Brad Pitt about who his latest girlfriend is, and asking those kind of personal questions. And so building that reputation about being trustworthy was really, really important. Actors would come over to me who knew me because they knew that Claire was the person that they could trust. So for me, having that trust and building the relationships with not only the actors, but remember, when those actors like you and their publicists know that, they come to you because they want to talk to you because they feel safe. Do you know the actor Denzel Washington? So he's just this, he's not only the equalizer, but he's just this amazing, phenomenal actor that's been going on for decades and decades. And I asked him this question about, he was in a film called Flight, where he plays an alcoholic, the captain of an aeroplane that nearly causes an accident. It was a very manipulative character, was basically what I was asking about. And you could see him kind of look at me as if to say, what do you mean by that? And he asked me, he's like, what do you mean by that? And I'm like, well, this character around you manipulate because of such and such. This character because of such and such. I was able to substantiate why I asked him that question. And he just came back with this amazing answer. And where he'd started off with not really kind of wanting to engage with me, he could see I'd put the effort in. And then he gave me everything. And you know, that I could come away, and I can tell you something, when you're in that dance and you're in the moment with that somebody that you really want to talk to, that's giving you something back, it's an addictive feeling, I have to be honest. But it all goes down to being prepared. And I don't sit there and read my questions. They're here. So when you write your questions, have them locked in your head. I'll think of a word within that sentence that I can remember, and I write it down. So I'll say, so in this instance, you know, tell us about the film. Okay, the word I'm going to think about is about. Tell us about the character. Okay, character. What's coming up next? Next. So I've got about the film, character, next. About the film, character, next. And I'm over and over and over in my head. You know, think about the style of journalism as well, and to the type of interviewer you want to be. Are you going to be Andrew Marr, who wants to, you know, it's quick fire round, it's political, you know, you're not going to let that politician get away with it and you're bang, bang, bang. But I was never that kind of journalist. My style was conversational. I want to have a conversation. I want to inspire other people. So think about the kind of style of journalist that you want to be.
We'll do a proper Q&A at the end, but let's get this last one in now and then we'll go on to someone else.
I'm just wondering what sort of research tools you use and how you incorporate that into coming up with your questions.
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, again, in film journalism terms, you'll get given a press release, so you'll know the synopsis of the film. You'll not always, but quite often you get a chance to see the film beforehand, so that's where I would get a very kind of visceral connection to what my personal feelings were, because remember, film is subjective. It's one man's meat's another man's poison. But we also get production notes, so we'll be sent a whole kind of behind the scenes of what it took to make the film, and it's talking to the directors and the lead actors, the producers, and from there you go, oh, I didn't know, say for instance The Hobbit, Andy Serkis, who played Gollum in the films, was second unit director. So when he came to do the interviews, I was like, so Andy's flying circus, you know, because that was something that was in the production notes, so I could lift that, and they're going, oh, she's done her research, and you just then get this amazing response. If it's based on a book, maybe go and do some research on the book. I mean, when I do the Q&As, where, you know, they're the kind of long form on stage interviews, I've even read the book, you know, so that again gives me a different perspective, as using the internet and researching is also obviously a very valuable tool. Do we want to go on to clean up the town?
Yeah, I was going to say, or if there's anything like technical, because I know we've got journalists and presenters.
Okay, so Anthony, how long does it take you to edit these pieces and how quick can you get them out to the press?
Well, it depends on the kind of thing you're cutting together, and it's purely just down to that kind of how complex it needs to be. When we did the Pearl and Dean thing, if you ever saw Pearl and Dean premieres, basically, we started that, and they just took it somewhere else afterwards. But they needed it by a certain date. But sometimes the premiere I think it was like 3 premieres or something like that, we'd fit into. I can't remember how long it was. It's like 30 seconds. I can't remember how long now. It was like X amount of minutes, and there was going to cover X amount of premieres or films. And in some cases, the film that they wanted was going to be the night before. So it would be literally an all-night job. When it came to just doing it for us, it just needed to be out there as quick as possible. That's what the PR companies require. And we know people that didn't work that quick, and it would sometimes go on weeks. Whereas we always take it very personally.
I think it's important to mention when it comes to a film release, 2 weeks before is where they ramp up the PR campaign. So you need to have your footage out before the film is released, because in film terms, opening weekend is how the film is judged. If everybody goes to see the film in its opening weekend, that deems whether the film is a success or not, pretty much, isn't it?
But in terms of time, it's, you know, with premiere scene stuff, in the end, I didn't do any really heavy editing. It was essentially like top and tailing. You know, we created the kind of motion graphics and all that kind of stuff just to go on it, but it wasn't anything like super fancy, as long as it was, you know, technically kind of okay. There's no pops in sound and things like that. Again, they were always a bit of a nightmare, because you've got lights all over the place, you've got sound going on in the background, some kind of soundtrack, which causes a bit of a problem with YouTube, even though it's nothing to do with us. But that was always, it was always basically out, as, you know, I'd get, sometimes you sort of like, you said, oh, do you want to come to the after party? Do you want to come and see the film? And Claire's like, great. It's like, yeah, but I've got to go and edit now. Thank you very much. So I will go and do that. So I used to like take myself off and just get it done. And it's pretty sweet. It's, you know, it's as long as a piece of string sometimes. You can get, once you've got your patter down, you know what you're doing and what you need. It's always that first initial times you're going out there with anything, like first day of a shoot or anything like that, it just drags on. But by the time you get to the end of the shoot, everything's slick. So it was pretty, and it depends on the amount of interviews that you've got and how long those interviews goes. But most of the time, I'd get those bashed out before sort of like, you'd finish about 7?
Yeah.
So about 7, 8, you go for about a week, get home and you get it sort of like done by midnight. At the latest. Because it was literally, get the graphic there, put the straps underneath, make sure it's all correct. And then it was up on YouTube or sent over to Pearl and Dean or whoever that we were kind of doing.
Did you want to talk about the lighting as well? Because you talked about the shift in...
Yeah, I mean, the lighting, it's not as bad these days because everything's pretty much kind of consistent. But when there was the transition between tungsten and LEDs and stuff, that was just, because everyone just goes really orange or really blue quickly. And it's like, I'm just trying to shoot this. So you got your set-top light trying to do its best. So it's a really... I don't know, it's a lot of trial and error. But the edit-wise, it's pretty straightforward. You just ingest as quick as you... Actually, I remember trying to play around with iPads and stuff, but they just weren't up to scratch at that point. And even taking the laptop out sometimes, just think, yeah, I'll just get it all done then and there. And that was never quite worked out. Purely for... You're trying to concentrate and work, there's people around you and you're distracted. I work better if I just go home, shut myself off, ingest, chop it all up, and then bung it up. So it's a pretty straightforward process in the end.
Yeah.
But there is all, it's like anything, you know, you kind of have fun.
Do you want to put the trailer on? We'll put the trailer on because these guys have written a book that you can buy now, so we're going to get onto that. But if you put the trailer on, just come up with a question, I'm going to run this lovely cut. Just take 2 seconds, okay. This running in as well.
They thought we were doing something for the ages.
I thought, why not mix the real world of psychic research and make it good old-fashioned ghost comedy.
I think we fully believed that we were going to carve out a little niche in film history.
And I just got this wonderful shiver down my back that I was about to do something special.
There's nothing else like it. It's funny and fresh.
It drove me out of my mind. I'm like, 7 full scale before you're going to say this is enough? At some point, we've got to actually make it.
I think the original maquette was a little better. Like so many Americans, he got too big.
But you know, there were these big mats of rubber.
And there were layers and layers of foam, which when people were exhausted, they would go and sleep on.
Sometimes you'll see my assistants like this.
We only had one automobile.
I think you just fix the car enough to just do this. We need to get this shot, get it running for this.
This is New York. Who's just got a lot of money?
Oh, I can be a pterodor.
Oh my God, am I going to have another John Candy conversation?
There's no life like making movies.
Who are these Ghostbusters? I mean, come on.
Ghostbusters, where can the guys see this, Anthony?
Everywhere. It's on, Claire's very good at this, I'm not. So you can get it on Blu-ray. They wouldn't allow us to make a DVD, but that's something else. So it's on Sky Store, iTunes.
Yeah, it's available to download. Yeah, on Apple, Sky Store, YouTube. You can so basically rent or download to own on Apple, iTunes, YouTube. Rakuten, so all of those kind of places you can download it, and we've got it out on Blu-ray. It was 12 years in the making, and so Anthony, as we were doing all this red carpet stuff, and we were working well together as brother and sister. We're lucky that we do work well together. Anthony came to me and said, because he was making documentaries in film school. How about making a documentary about my favourite film, I think, and then over to you, brother.
And that was yes, that was like the long and the short of it. It was like, I mean, this is more of a filmmaker thing rather than a journalist thing. But you kind of, if you're open to it, you kind of go and do different things and you diversify, and it's a good thing. And certainly with journalism, and just quickly going back to that, like what Claire has done now, where it's not in London, she does coaching for like actors and presenters and authors, and because she's built that reputation, and those PR people that knew her have also gone on and moved on to do different things. You know, if you're open to it, you know, your career will be quite broad, and you can go and do many different things, which is fantastic.
And network, yeah.
You know, networking is the thing. I've never been great at networking.
Not force it, but just be yourself and be nice, and people can see that.
Yeah, and you just evolve. So anyway, and that's kind of like with, you know, when I went to film school and did all various kind of like different films and shorts and all that kind of jazz, as you do. That's what the whole point of it is. And then I bumped into a fellow called Paul at a Comic-Con, and I'd never been to a Comic-Con before. They weren't new, but they were kind of one of those things. But he wanted to make a documentary about American wealth in London, so that's how I was like, I'd love to do making of documentaries like they do on DVDs, because that was like a big thing back then.
I would say though, in relation to these kind of documentaries, people like Mark Commode, who, you know, Mark Commode, the film reviewer, who's a journalist by trade, he makes documentaries.
Yes, he does.
So the thing is, what I'm saying is, you don't have to be limited to just doing, you know, working for the BBC or a newspaper or whoever. You can expand.
It's just, you know, sitting with filmmakers. You're fascinated by a particular subject. With me, has always been film, and then you're hearing these stories. And most filmmakers do want to talk. And certainly the red carpet stuff, the better ones are always the indie filmmakers, because everyone's passionate about it. They just want to get this film seen and out there.
How hard was it to actually get all those interviews and everything into a book? And where can we actually get your book?
Oh, fantastic!
That's what we're going to do.
So the book is based off of the documentary that Anthony and I made. The way I have edited the book is it isn't transcribed, though I did physically transcribe all the interviews. I follow the book. We follow the film of Ghostbusters scene by scene, and I intersperse conversations really with the talent again talking to us about that particular scene. I intersperse them. You can get the book on Amazon, as you can the Blu-ray. You can also visit our website, ghostbustersdoc.com. Better to do it that way, because we actually get more of the money.
But it was it was more, because it wasn't specifically for the book, we're making a documentary, so that's all about organising the interviews, having to go to the States most of the time. I think there was only one interview that we did in the UK. Most of the time we had to go over to the States, construct that time that we were going to be over there. Sometimes it was a couple of weeks, sometimes it was a couple of months. And it was great fun, and you can barely call it work because it was such a laugh. There's a lot, again, similar kind of pressures. You just want to do a good job, so you get very nervous. But it's, you know, it took us a long time to get that, because not everyone's always available on that trip. That took us 12 years of doing those trips, and then when Claire was writing the book, she was able to get a few more interviews from people that who just weren't available at the time. Contact details might not have been available, but that was purely. But you could do that through Zoom and stuff, so that's much more easy to organise. Whereas with the doc, it's more complicated.
Yeah. And somebody did ask about how do you get the interviews. It was basically you kind of have to start small and build your way up. So if you're if you're a sports journalism, you're not probably going to. I don't know who's in the Premier League. You're not going to get them, but maybe somebody that's in the Vauxhall League or whatever it is, you'll get to speak to them and then build up. And then you can go, well, I've interviewed such and such and such and such. And that's how you build up to, you know, the more kind of high profile people. You have to show that you're trustworthy and you've got a track record before you get in front of the top hitters. It's
just having that bit of a track record. But it's like Claire says, if you start small and go big, although like Ernie was the first person to agree and to be interviewed, and he was in the UK. Actually, no, we did 2 people in the UK. So Ernie was the first person we interviewed. And I mean, Comic-Cons were a bit smaller then, so we kind of
accessible.
went via the correct way, and then we went to see him at Comic-Con, and then it just kind of happened there, which was great. And we've remained friends with him ever since.
IMDb Pro is really good for being able for contact details.
But then
as
there's Twitter or whatever it's
and
called,
Twitter
whatever
now
kind
makes
of those versions
of
Twitter are these days, X or whatnot.
X or
you know, there's that
Instagram or
kind
whatever.
of direct contact, which sometimes works.
Have we got a last question from anyone? Is there anything that you go for or anybody else?
Yeah, no, go on.
Is that really?
No, it's all right. Well, that's what we're here for.
So really,
please.
No, no.
Oh, go on, Anthony.
But anyway, anyway, this is quite a good one though. I'll pick number 2 out of this.
Okay.
So, how long did it take to get presenting in front of a camera?
Oh, that is a good question. I went on a presenting course, and because I thought I'm a bubbly personality, it'll be easy. It was absolutely terrifying. Recording, being able to recall your dialogue, to talk to camera, and I'm quite happy to stand and show you some of the tips and tricks if you want me to that I learned, but I was petrified. I just remember, like, we would stand in front of the camera, you would do your piece to camera, and they played it back, and I looked like, I don't know, like a terrified mouse, like a rabbit in spotlights. But basically, you just have to learn to know your dialogue, connect to the dialogue, think about those words that you need to emphasise. Because remember, the job of all of us as journalists is to communicate and connect to an audience. I have always wanted to be a writer since I can't even remember when, but I have wanted to do it and write, which since the youngest age. And what's been great very quickly is I've been able to turn what we did with the documentary into a book, which has just come out. So again, using your journalistic skills to kind of broaden what you do. And now I can say I'm an author, so it's amazing.
Do you think it's better to go to uni or get work experience and get out there as soon as possible?
Yeah.
That is a good question. What's good for the goose isn't always good for the gander. I think it's always a thing. I went to film school, and film school benefited me a lot, even though it cost quite a lot of money at that point in time. And kids I went to film school with complained about it. And I was just like, I would have paid twice as much to get out of the job that I was doing. So, but uni, I think it depends on, I don't know what they teach at uni, to be fair. I personally would be, if you've already got a good grounding here, I think getting out into the world, because sometimes, people who have gone to uni, and so, I'm really talking from the filmmaking side of it, I don't think uni is the be all and end all. I think if you're going to put yourself in so much debt up to your ear rolls, I don't see the point of it. But on the filmmaking side, I know there's a lot of theory there they teach in uni. So I would say there is a balance, and you kind of got to assess it for yourself. Personally, I probably wouldn't do the uni thing. I'd get out into the world, because that's where you're going to really learn your
craft. I didn't go to university, but I did lots of courses. So I am very big on education, but I did the courses to help me hone my craft. So I've got, my certificates in journalism and whatever. I don't have a degree in journalism, but I continue to do and just build my portfolio. If you've got the opportunity to say no to nothing, and particularly when you go out there, you're not going to necessarily get paid. Just get the work experience, because it goes on your CV. Nobody knows whether you got paid or not.
Is it nerve-wracking when you talk to actors?
Yes, because I care. I care deeply. But what happens is I get the butterflies. There's a whole expression. If the day you don't get butterflies for whatever scenario that you're in, it's time to get a new job, because you stopped caring. So I do get the butterflies, and I'll go, why on earth am I putting myself through this? Because this is terrifying and I'm nervous. But I don't know whether I'm a machine, but something happens that as soon as they stand in front of me, I just flick, and it's a switch, it's work, it's like, right, we're in the moment, need to get this done, need to get this interview. And it goes completely, so the nerves just go out the window, then they go, and then you go, oh my God, that was the most amazing experience. And then you can't come off your cloud for days.
That's down to the preparation again.
Yeah,
it's
yes.
Really, because we would take on various other people sometimes. And it doesn't matter how many times you drilled in about, be prepared.
Yeah.
Make sure you get a load of stuff done the day before, so you know what you're getting on with. Best thing is writing things down actually on paper rather than relying on phones or iPads, because those things always don't work. And it always looks kind of crap when you're kind of flicking around on your phone. And bugger me, every time you'd be sort of like, just about to do the carpet and they're fiddling on the phone. It's like, oh, I'm just checking on about what you'd sent me. It's like, we sent you that stuff like 3 days ago. And sometimes we only get the stuff we've got a couple of days before. And the one time, that's exactly what happened. The girl, I've forgotten her name, but she'd interviewed one person, she was fine, and then Normally you see them all kind of come down, but again, these like the PRs or the publicists take them backwards and forwards. So she wasn't prepared to see it, and she completely locked. She hadn't done the research properly. She completely locked up, and he was very, very nice.
Yeah.
And tried to help her through it, but she couldn't get through it.
Matthew McConaughey, I had an incident with him. I asked him a question. It was for Dallas Buyers Club that he got the Oscar for, and I didn't realise it was one question per person, and that his publicist, in the middle of my asking the second question, hit me, and I was just like, what the hell? And I'm stood next to, honestly, I mean, he's breathtaking. Another one, God. But anyway, he saw what had happened, and in that instance, I completely lost my thread. I was like, and he could see that I was kind of like, what just happened there? And he just went to me, it's fine. You take your time. When you're ready, you ask me your next question. And sure enough, I collected myself. So it's about how, again, being prepared, I was able to sort of bounce back. Had I asked a shitty question in the first place, I wouldn't have got a second chance. But again, even if you know, the thing as well about when you're doing broadcast journalism is being able to, if you make a mistake, it doesn't matter. It's your ability and quickness to be able to just pick it up as if nothing's happened and carry on. So if you flip your words up on camera, forget about it, the show must go on.
If you're prepared and you're going to get nervous. If you're not nervous, then you're really in the wrong job. But you've got to see that as a positive.
Yeah, you've got to manage it, haven't you?
They are just as nervous about being there because they're nervous about getting asked a really dumb question. Unless you're like Tom Hardy, and he always shuts them down quite quickly, which is quite funny.
What's it like to go from being such a rural area like Devon up to London? How does that kind of affect your career?
Great question. For me, it absolutely changed my life for the better.
Yeah, everything about this is experiences. Life should be an experience, and London is just unlike any other city. London, New York, LA, you know, they're incredible cities. LA is for very different reasons, but New York's similar to London. But it's just, you know, everyone's kind of there. I know there's stuff that goes on in the southwest and Bristol and things like that. It's nice to have a base here.
Yeah.
Because London is amazing, but Christ, it can get a bit too much at times. So to be able to kind of step away where not a lot of others can and just come down to the southwest and chill and detox and then go back, you know, it can be an incredible place because that's where everything really is happening. There's so much, you don't realise until you're there how much really goes on.
I think remember as well in journalism terms, London, you know, the BBC's head office was still in London. Now it's in Manchester, isn't it? You know, it's whole opened up. So you've got Manchester as another kind of possibility, and Birmingham and things like that. Whereas when we moved up there, it was like London was the place to be. But for me, I absolutely loved it. You know, the culture, the lifestyle, the friends, the support. I found people much more supportive up there of your endeavours than necessarily down here. But you know, if you've got family and you're based down here, you've got the best of both worlds. If you go up there and you can come back and have that flexibility.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it may be very different now for your generation as opposed to ours. But if you say you're going to go and do something, a creative industry, they're just like, yes, so what? There's no kind of. Unless you're going to go off and make a Hollywood film, they don't understand all the... because it's a huge, huge industry, whether it's journalism or anything else, and nobody seems to get that. And trying to explain that to people who live in the southwest, most of them don't get it. At least they didn't used to. I don't know if it's the same now. But when you go to London, that's different because it's a mash of like every
type
Dan
of
Aykroyd
industry.
It's like creativity and commerce and creativity. No, I always say creativity. Oh, I never get this right. There's three things that he said. And that's the film industry, but that's London and New York for that matter. Because you've got arts and you've got finance and culture and everything's blended together.
Yeah,
and
it's very diverse.
Rather than like pockets of like down here's more kind of industrial.
Tourist.
It's just, it's great. It's worth doing. Even if you end up hating it, at least you can say you've done it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I need to know what you were going to ask.
I was going to ask about composition on the red carpet, how you deal with it. Like
competition?
No, composition, like with people walking around.
Oh, yeah. That is definitely his question.
Oh, right, okay. Right, that's an interesting one. So it's... because it's structured in a certain way. So it's like before it starts, it kind of starts. What time does it start?